If you watched my video from last week, you saw that big blue circle off in the distance when I was working on my waypoints. Well, this week, I'm going to tell you what that is. And if you stick around long enough, I'll tell you if and how it impacts you as a drone pilot. So stay tuned. If you watched my video last week, where I was talking about waypoints on the Mavic 2 Pro series, I talked about what I call this blue circle of death that kept following me up around the field I was practicing in. And to give you some context, you see that bright blue dot in the center and the light blue circle around it? This thing kept moving around. And I was in a fenced off drone park, and above me was a fenced off dog park. And as I looked at this thing, I thought, well, maybe there's a dog emanating something from a collar because it stayed within the confines of the dog park. But it was very erratic. You see, it just jumped there. No dog's going to jump that hard, but it's still inside the fence. Then after a while, it decided to jump back the other direction. And I watched it a little further. Meanwhile, I'm trying to do my waypoints. And then it jumped over the fence and went behind me. Now, I had no idea what it was doing, but I went ahead, started up my drone, slid this over to take off, and began flying my waypoints. No problems, but you see this blue circle of death is still following me. Had no idea what it was. Flew the entire route, everything seemed to be fine, finished it, came back, landed, and went home. I thought, okay, what's going on here? So I went back home and pulled up my PC and looked at what I'd started with when I pre-planned this flight. This was based on my home studio where I started the drone up and set my waypoints here manually. And everything seemed to be fine. I could set my waypoints. I saw no blue circle of death here. Everything worked just fine. So that didn't make any sense to me. So I did a little research, and coincidentally, I got an update from one of my news feeds. And in that news feed, it talked about Google Locate and how it tries to locate you with that blue dot. Well, of course, I'm familiar with that through our driving app, where I use Google Maps to navigate, and everything works fine on that. But look what it says here. How Google knows where you are. Like any other navigation app, Google Maps first foremost relies on the GPS sensor inside your phone. Okay. My phone was on, my tablet was on, the GPS was on, I was good there. They use that to determine your location and display the blue dot we've discussed. Now, that blue dot should be your location, and that light blue circle around it is that area of uncertainty. And they say thanks to this method, Google Maps is capable of determining your location up to approximately 65 feet. Well, I can tell you at most times that blue dot was a good 200, sometimes 300 feet from me. So that wasn't good. But they say it's getting better. Google Maps can also look for your location based on Wi-Fi. Well, I wasn't hooked up to Wi-Fi out there, so that didn't help. And it says if you're connected to a wireless network, the application can use information to get more accurate data. So theoretically, if I'm at home and open up my PC, it can look at my IP address, my wireless network, and determine my location there. And that should be accurate, right? And then finally, if neither GPS nor Wi-Fi is available, then Google Maps turns to cellular information to estimate your location. But look at this. Could be accurate up to a few thousand meters. So that's not really good. So I thought, okay, let me test that. So I came back home, pulled up my PC, put in my address, and here's what I got. Okay, here's that little blue dot. You notice there's no circle of uncertainty around it. So Google is saying this is where I live. Only I don't. In fact, I've tried that several different times, and it can be as much as 5 or 6 houses away. But it says definitely I live there, and my key doesn't work in that house. So that's interesting. So I thought, well, let me pull up my iPad mini again, since I use that for all my flight, and see what it says. So I pulled up my iPad mini, connected it to my Wi-Fi network, and here's what I got. Looks like I'm in somebody's backyard walking around, which I'm not. And then I decide, well, I'll jump over that house into somebody else's backyard and play around there for a while. And then after doing that for a while, I think I'll jump back into that tree. So if you look at that circle of uncertainty there, I counted it earlier. It looked like I could be anywhere within 12 different homes based on that. So that's kind of funny, isn't it? Google is trying to locate me, but can't really find me, even though it's got good information. But I guess you want to know, how does this affect me as a drone pilot? Well, the good news is it doesn't. This has no implications to what we're doing. My waypoints were fine. The GPS location of the drone is fine. It does not affect our flying at all. But just thought you might be interested in this. And I think it's kind of funny. So there you have it. As it turns out, no big deal to us, right? That big blue ball of death does not affect us as drone pilots. So that's a good thing. But I hope you learned something from it. If you did and you liked the video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe down below. And if you feel like sharing it with your friends, please do so. That would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you so much for watching.